Hey everybody, welcome back. In today's video, I want to show you just how easy it is to get all the dirt, mold, grime, or algae that can build up on your fence over time without causing any permanent damage to the fence. Now, whether you're looking to prep to stain the fence or just want to bring it back to its former glory, this video is going to be perfect for you. So let's jump right in. Now, before you bust your pressure washer out and to start blasting your fence with the highest PSI possible, it's important to start with some type of chemical or cleaner to get most of that grime off. Using a pressure washer with too high of a PSI or the wrong nozzle will definitely cause damage to your fence, and I'll show you an example of that later in the video.
For this project, I'm going to use the 30 seconds outdoor cleaner. This product comes in a concentrate that you can mix up and use in a pump up sprayer or one that has a hose end attachment. Now, there's a ton of different products out there, and I'm sure everyone has their personal opinion on what works best, but I found that this gives me the best results without breaking the bank. If you purchase the concentrate without the hose end attachment and would rather use the pump up sprayer, just make sure you dilute it correctly inside the sprayer with roughly a 1-to-1 ratio of cleaner to water. If your fence doesn't have that much grime on it, you can dilute it down a little further if you'd like. For this project, I'm going to use a pump up sprayer because I believe it's easier to apply the cleaner exactly where you want it without as much overspray. If you're using the hose end attachment for your project, just screw your garden hose into the back of the container, and then there's 3 different modes on the hose end attachment that include off, rinse, and clean. And one quick tip, unless you plan on spraying long distances, make sure the little red cap on the hose end attachment is still inserted when you're ready to start spraying. Now, regardless on how you plan on applying the cleaner, I do recommend giving any vegetation a good soak with your water hose to prevent any cleaner from damaging any of the plants, trees, or grass that may get accidental overspray when applying the cleaner. The last thing you want is a clean fence only to find out you killed off half your garden or damaged one of your trees or shrubs. For any vegetation that has the potential to get oversprayed, it's best practice to rinse it down with water before, during, and after applying any chemical. This will help dilute the chemical to prevent any severe or long-term damage to your vegetation. 30 seconds outdoor cleaner is meant to be applied when the fence is completely dry, so make sure that the wood isn't damp or still wet from recent rain or your irrigation system running. When spraying, be sure to get the fence as wet as possible without over-soaking it and wasting any of the chemical. A good rule of thumb is making sure there isn't an excessive amount of cleaner running down the fence when spraying. If there are some spots on the fence that have visibly heavier buildup of any algae, mold, or grime, you can apply a little extra cleaner on a spot-to-spot basis or even use a brush to scrub it down prior to rinsing. While you're spraying the cleaner, do your best to go with the grain of the wood and stay consistent with the spray pattern and how much cleaner you're applying to each fence board. When applying this 30 seconds outdoor cleaner to wood, it's recommended to let it dwell on the fence for roughly 5 minutes before you rinse it off. If you have a large section of fence that you're cleaning, it might be smart to break it up into separate segments to prevent it from drying before you have the chance to rinse. When you're ready to start rinsing, you can use the pressure from a garden hose or the rinse option on the hose end attachment if you decided to go that route. Be sure to give the entire fence a good spray and get all of that buildup and gunk that's accumulated on the fence over time. After you make your way around the entire fence, you should notice a considerable difference in the before and after. If you still see a lot of staining or grime built up after you rinse, I'd recommend letting the fence dry completely and then reapplying the cleaner, and then this time, let it dwell a little longer on the fence than you did the first application and give it a good brushing prior to rinsing. If you're looking to take the cleaning a step further, this is where I would recommend pulling out your pressure washer to really get the fence looking as good as possible. But before you go crazy, there's a few things to be aware of. Now, as I mentioned earlier in the video, one of the reasons we want to apply the cleaner first was to prevent the need to blast the fence with an extremely high pressure. If you use too high of a pressure or use the wrong nozzle tip with your pressure washer, it will cause your wood to splinter and that damage will definitely be permanent. At the sacrifice of one of my own fence panels to show you what I mean, here's an example of what using too high a pressure or the wrong nozzle can do to your fence. You won't always realize this damage is being done while you're pressure washing, but once it dries, you'll definitely notice, and I don't know about you, but I don't think this looks good at all. I recommend starting with a low pressure that still gets that extra layer of gunk or weathering off of the board without causing the splintering or damage I just showed you. All fences will vary on what they can handle based off the age or the type of wood, but I'd recommend starting with around 1000 or 1500 psi and a soap nozzle, which is the black tip that comes with most pressure washers. If that's not doing much for you, you can try to incrementally raise the PSI or use the 40-degree nozzle tip, which is normally white. It's important to remember that you can always work your way up to a higher pressure or a different tip, but you can never go back. When using the pressure washer, there's a few best practices and tips I want to share with you to help you get the best possible clean without damaging your fence. The first is to be sure to wash with the grain of the wood. For most fences, this is going to be vertical or up and down the fence panel. Spraying the opposite way of the grain can damage the fence and make some spots look less clean than others. The next best practice is to try to stay the same distance away from the fence panels throughout the entire pressure washing process. If you get closer or further away with your wand while spraying, it will show up in the form of either damage to the fence or at the bare minimum, an inconsistent clean. The last tip I want to share is that I recommend trying to be consistent with the motion of your spray pattern. If you go too fast, you might not fully clean the board, and if you go too slow or make too many passes in one spot, you might end up damaging the board. One of the best pieces of advice I've ever received when completing a project like this is that it's not a race. If you take your time with cleaning your fence by following the steps and use the tips and tricks I mentioned in this video, I'm confident you'll be happy with how it turns out. If you made it this far in the video, I really appreciate you for making it to the end. If you're interested in how to stain a fence after you finish cleaning it, stay tuned for a future video where I'll walk through that process step by step. If you're interested in any of the products I use in this video or products that I recommend for average DIYers, I'll be sure to leave the links down in the description below. If you have any questions, leave a comment and I'll be more than happy to help. Thanks again for tuning in, and I'll catch you next time.